So, hi. This video is a little kind of off topic from the videos I normally make, like on being interracial, but it is a subject I have a lot of experience with, and I think might be kind of interesting for hypothetical people who might ever watch any of these. So, I've been kind of noticing like if quite a few videos about Generation X have been recommended to me, and someone said, "Why the hell is everyone talking about Gen X all of a sudden?" And I kind of have this theory as to why. I think a phenomenon is coming up that's going to impact. The Gen X is going to be the target of, and I have already been that. See, like the boomers are kind of getting to the point where they're going to have to retire. They just physically can't hang on to their jobs anymore, and some of them aren't in the best physical condition. Some of them aren't in the best financial condition. The millennials and Gen Z especially are just starting out their careers. This was really slammed home to me when I was I guess about 18. Okay, let me back up. Well, I guess when I was like 16 and 17, I cooked in a daycare. They had like optional breakfast. Most kids didn't have the breakfast, but they could have breakfast. And they had a hot, well-balanced lunch program and a healthy snacks program, and I cooked for them. And then when I was 18, I had this kind of entry position in like this finance office situation. And just the other day, I had to like file something, and it was one of the young lady who's handling it now was one of the kids I used to cook for. So it's like, well, but anyway, alongside and in between those two events, my parents, who one had me a little later in life. I mean, my mom, they also didn't really look after their health. My dad was like a hardcore alcoholic. My mom was kind of a food addict, which so am I. And they never exercised at all. So like their health just anyway, when I was in grade 8, my dad's kidneys failed, and it was like, guess what? You're not going on to high school. You're going to be taking care of your dad for the last 2 years of his life so that he can die at home or pass away at home or live out his final year. I don't know what the nice term they've got for it right now is. This kind of, spend the remainder of his days at home. But it's an ungodly, awful process. It's awful. And it is awful being the one providing that care. It is like, it is physically exhausting. It is an emotional gauntlet, and it leaves you destroyed. After he had passed away, I managed to get my high school through correspondence, managed to get into college, an actual college, got my general arts and science, got into university, started my first year of university. My mother, my heart is failing. I need you to come home and quit your post-secondary education and look after me for the last 3 years of my life now, which I did. And I kind of think that as this is going to become more and more the situation of more and more boomers, and you know, oh, the millennials and Gen Z are still young and can still make a good life for themselves, who are they both going to look at? So I think that's why people are kind of, oh yeah, Gen X exists. Well, you don't got anything going on. I mean, when you were entering the workforce, the boomers all switched from, oh, retirement age should be mandatory, get the fuck out of the way, old man, to, oh, hey, wait a minute, what about human dignity? And if you can do the job, that's ageism. If retirement is a mandatory age, we should be allowed to keep our jobs for as ever long as we want. So, if for the people that are about to kind of be faced with this parental pressure, don't you love me? Aren't you going to like look after me? Are you gonna like let me, you know, not have any dignity? You know, and might decide to. I have 10 pieces of very hard-earned insight that might be useful to you. So, first of all, doing this will significantly negatively impact your life and future ability to create any quality of life for yourself afterwards, after they've passed away, and to be able to support yourself. I mean, I know maybe some of you are thinking, oh, I have like some work experience, but that doesn't matter if there's a big gap. There's a big gap in your like work history. There's a big gap in your rental history, in your credit history. That's basically as bad as just having no history at all. No one will give you a chance. You will be like building from nothing. Basically everything everyone's lobbing at like tradwives right now, it's the exact same situation if you've been a caregiver to your parents. The renters, the banks, the whatever, the employers, they don't care why there's a gap. They don't care what it was for. They care that there's a gap, and that's a non-starter. So be prepared to start with nothing after your parents are dead and don't need you anymore. Second thing, don't blame yourself afterwards. At the time, with my dad, I really didn't have any choice. I was a minor. I couldn't leave. If I'd known about like emancipation as a minor, if I'd known about legal adult protective services programs, I might have reached out to them. I might not have. I don't know. But with my mother afterwards, I was very self-critical. I wasted a lot of years after she passed away just getting really hard on myself. Like, you stupid idiot, you'd escaped. You knew exactly how hard that was, and you put yourself back in that position. And, I didn't want to be the kind of heartless bastard that could, like, cut my own mother out of my life. And I remember there had been this story on the news. This elderly lady couldn't take care of herself anymore, and her house was like, or her house and all, and it was becoming like a hazard, like, I don't know, I guess there was garbage or like mice and rats infestation or something, so like they got an injunction and they physically removed her, and like they filmed it, the news filmed it and put it on the air, and she just looked so confused and so helpless, and I was like scared that was gonna be my mom, and I didn't want that to be my mom, as angry as I still am at her at a lot of things. I didn't want that to be her, but like after she passed away and I just had myself like, I don't know, I just kind of turned on myself, like I didn't know it was going to be that hard. Like I thought, okay, you know, I'll do this work, I'll get back into education, which I couldn't do, but like I'll get another job, which I couldn't do, I couldn't even get like a decent apartment at all. I couldn't, nothing. And I was like, I have no one to blame but myself for this. And I wish I hadn't wasted those years and just kind of got to just accept your choice, whatever it is, and move forward. Okay, but sorry for jumping back and forth here. It's hard to like time this list out. When your ailing parent is kind of convincing you to come home and, you know, this is the new deal now, this is what you need to be doing for me every single day until I don't need you to do this anymore. Be prepared for, there's this phenomenon called poisoning the well. And it's basically when anyone tells everyone in the social circle around you, anyone who could potentially help you, straight up lies. Like when I was in college and thinking of maybe not going on to university, maybe trying to find like a job straight out of college, maybe trying to apply to places and just trying to like get away. My mother told one of my academic advisors, the head RA of residence, my family doctor, who was also her family doctor, and a couple of people in our community, that I was seriously suicidal, and that I had become extremely violent with her, neither of which was true. That was actually, ironically, one of the few times in my life when I wasn't suicidal. I was away from her, away from that environment. I was like better than I think I've ever been. And everywhere I tried to turn, I was just kind of getting this condemnation and this I'm not even going to deal with you in the condition that your mother says you're in. And if you're thinking, oh, that's horribly abusive, yeah, it was, but oh, my parents aren't abusive, they wouldn't do that. Well, I think maybe when someone is staring down, maybe not being able to like just basically take care for themselves and dying without dignity, and they might change, and you need to be prepared for that. And you also need to be prepared for kind of living this lie. because they don't want to admit they're dying. If they were willing to admit it, they'd go to a fucking nursing home. They'd go to hospice care. They would go to a hospital. I mean, really, like this, passing away at home, living out their days at home, whatever the stupid term is for it now, it's just basically denial. It's play acting that they're still maintaining their young adult life, and off of, as long as someone's there to like prop everything up and clean everything up and get everything ready beforehand, and like they'll drop it in like real circumstances. They'll drop this narrative, but for the majority of the time, those final years, there's kind of this narrative, oh, once you've just like kicked this kidney failure, once your heart's back up to like, it's normal strength, oh, you're gonna, finish out your career, you're gonna like retire, you're gonna go to travel the world, whatever the retirement, whatever the goal is, whatever it is they want to do, you'll be talking about that a lot. Well, like fucking changing their adult diapers. And it's it can make you kind of crazy. So you got to be prepared for that. Okay. 5. Be the one listed on the deed, the title, the life insurance, the pension, whatever it is, whatever there might be afterwards, you damn well deserve to be listed as the recipient of it. Never tell yourself different. That is yours. That is rightfully yours. 6. If they won't do that, leave. You will not have to be gone for long for them to like change. I remember my mother was undergoing some kind of procedure. They were trying to like take the strain off her heart a little bit, and they were going to put her under. And the doctor went through his whole like, oh, there's like a 1 in a million chance, but since we are putting you to sleep medically, you might not wake up, and so she's like, oh, because of this risk, I'm thinking of adjusting my thing at work to include your grandmother who, when in the first years of my mother's marriage, when my father was regularly getting drunk and beating the shit out of her, and she tried to leave, my grandmother said, well, you chose your bed, you lay in it. My grandmother, who made me sleep on the floor because I'm an Indian and I'm dirty. My grandmother, who owned her own home, who had her retirement, who had her Social Security, who owned her own car, who was going to be fine with it or without it. My mother was like, oh, maybe I should leave her something. And I was like, okay, you know what? It's yours. You do that. Goodbye. I'm sure Grandma will, take 5 minutes out of her weekend and call you and tell you what a wonderful daughter you are and all of the things that you love to hear about yourself so much, Mom. And I left, and I was gone for a little over a month. And she was like, oh, I was just speculating. I was never really going to do that, no. And I came back and took care of her. And so, okay. 7, if you have to leave to like what is all you're going to have to survive afterwards, to not give that to someone else who's building their life and has their life and is fine, You know, maybe in a way I'm lucky, like being an only child. Like, I mean, I've heard of like sibling abuse and real favoritism, and but if you have to like take a stand, and that is the only thing that will get them to like to change and to treat you fairly, is if they have to start washing their own dishes or whatever, or cleaning themselves or whatever. If you have to leave, make sure to fit it into their narrative. Like I said, they don't want to admit that they're dying, so they're going to have this whole constructive narrative, crazy thing. One of the most convoluted, craziest things you will have ever heard, for why, you know, everything's fine. This is just a little hiccup. This is you just temporarily taking some time to, like, you know, whatever, to like help me out with this one, you know, this one thing, you know. So like, to give you an example of that, my mother had this plan after she, you know, got back to her normal strength and got back to work and finished out her work and retired, and she was gonna move to Southern Ontario, and you know, she was gonna maybe start like a little, like not like a farm, but like have like a little garden box, and like maybe have like some chickens. And I managed to get readmitted into Lakehead as a returning student, and I was like, well, you know, when you, this will work out perfectly, you know, because like when you retire, I'll like I've done the math on these years, you know, you're like 6 years from retirement, and like I'll finish graduate school this time, and then I'll go right into law school like you always wanted, and I'll be a lawyer. And you know, if anyone ever complains about you or gets an injunction about you, that happens, Mom, you know, I can help you out with that. I'll be able to help you out with that. And like, it was actually kind of funny because like I could just see things like crashing into her head, like reality and all of her fantasy and crap and all of it, like just smashing into each other. And anyway, it, like she couldn't overcome it to like put up a fight to like keep me trapped in the house and caring for her. And so anyway, like I said, it was like a little over a month before she was like, oh, how are you doing at school? By the way, you know, you're still that was silly of me to even be like thinking about that. So okay. 8. Try to get your, and I say try, fully admitting I was never able to, but if you can think of a way, try to get your name on the accounts, phone, hydro, water, everything that they've got set up in their name. And if you can't, be prepared for some of the most immoral, opportunistic, and inhumane behavior from these service providers. Like, it is like, sorry, I'm sweating so much. It is like hot as heck right now. it was disgusting how they acted, and knowing good and darn well she was dead, and just still sending bills and not like letting me make any decisions or anything at all. Like, oh well, you're the one who's responsible, you just keep paying us like in perpetuity, you know. They were like, okay, well, to do this, you know what, the water, to do this, well, we need proof that she's dead. So like, I had like a few of the coroners, the funeral parlor's death certificates, and I got them one, and you know, and if you prove, and what they said to me was, if you prove to us, give us proof that she's passed away, we'll cease service and then the bills will stop. I got them their death certificate. They just kept sending bills to the estate. And they can do that. They can just keep making money off of this. So it's so try. Like, and it's going to be hard because it doesn't fit the narrative. Like, you know, because like I would kind of voice concerns like, how am I going to deal with this? And she would immediately, what are you looking forward to when I'm dying? The second I'm cold, like I'm not even going to be cold yet, and you're going to have all of these things all of my accounts turned off, and like, and you know, she would, and then it would be difficult to take care of her that day because like she'd fight me on everything. It would be like just this miserable process that. Anyway, okay. If a renter, number 9, if a renter is seriously considering renting to you, they bring their receipt book to the showing of the apartment. If they haven't brought it, don't give them a dime, get the fuck out. And consider yourself lucky that you've just wasted a day. Because, you know, they will say, "Oh, I forgot my rent book." If they're serious, they don't forget it. It's a business. They'll bring it. I forgot my book, but I'll take your deposit money and I'll remember you. And I know I've been completely desperate. I've had like I was starting out with absolutely no rental history, and I've been, you know, I had to like hemorrhage money in a hotel and showed up and pleaded with the person and left just making silent supplication to karma. Oh, you know, I hope whoever it is that got to solely only ever focus on their self and their career and their credit history and their everything that you think is worthy of renting to, I hope they turn out to be just the worst tenant ever. But you know, and I've gotten taken once. I only made a mistake once, but you know, you can't. It happens when you're desperate. You know, I mean, I'm not judging anyone who has. I'm judging the horrible thief of the renter. I'm just trying to warn you. Get away. If they can't give you a proper receipt, they're just looking for some easy cash. 10. If you try therapy, as you very well might need, don't hesitate to walk out on a therapist that's not helping you get better. And you are the only one who's going to do that because you're their paycheck. Like, they will just keep making you worse. I mean, I had that experience. Like, just, you know, oh, you know, it's totally valid, and we can talk about this later. As long as they keep getting the payments, they don't care. They don't care if you're getting better. So, and you're the only one who's going to do this for you. They're not going to say, as a professional, I don't think I'm helping you. So you're going to have to walk away, and you're going to have to start all over again. But look at it this way. If you don't do that, there's never going to be any possibility of finding a therapist who might actually help you, and those are out there. But that can be really hard. That can be really hard to like walk away from a therapist. And miigwech.